Head of Planning and Enforcement, Sarah Chapman, our Legal Advisor, Claire Wallachek, our Democratic Service Officer, and our Planning Officers, Karen McCulloch, Joe Orton, and Paul Varnish. Before we begin working through the agenda, I will go through some rules on procedure. As set out in the introduction, this meeting is being web streamed to the public. This is being monitored by IT services. If at any point there are any streaming issues, then I will be informed and the meeting will be adjourned until such time that the technological issues can be resolved. If during the course of the meeting any member of the committee is having connection issues, then there'll be a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the connection issues can be resolved. If following the adjournment the connection issues cannot be resolved, then providing the meeting remains quorate, it will continue. It will be deemed that the member with connection issues has left the meeting and will no longer be able to participate. If it is my connection that goes down, then the Vice Chair will assume control of the meeting. For officers and speakers, please switch off your microphones and cameras and I will call you to speak at appropriate times. For committee members, your microphones and cameras should be switched off unless you're speaking. If you wish to ask a question on the officer's report during the debate, please use the raise hand function and wait for me to ask you to speak. The voting during virtual meetings will use the raise hand function. Are there any questions before we move to the formal agenda? I will now ask our Democratic Services Officer to confirm the attendees at this meeting. Your name will be called out and can you please confirm your attendance?
Thank you, Chair. So going through the names of members in alphabetical order, Councillor Mrs Brown.
Barbara.
Councillor Kieran Brown.
Present.
Councillor Butlin.
Present.
Councillor Eccleston.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Gillias.
Present.
Councillor Miss Lawrence.
Present.
Councillor Picker.
Present.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Present.
Councillor Sanderson.
Present.
And Councillor Srivastava.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
seem to have been missed, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Cranham.
I am here.
Sorry.
Thank you. Agenda item 1 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of August 2020. Can you all raise your hands if you are happy to confirm those minutes, please? Is that everybody, Claire?
We've just got Councillor Sanderson who hasn't raised his hand.
I did.
Oh, there it. Yep, we're unanimous now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, you can lower your hands. Okay, agenda item 2 is apologies to receive apologies for absence from the meeting. Do we have any apologies? Okay. Was there a hand up there?
Yes, it was mine I'm declaring an interest as the councillor for the Revel and Binley Woods.
With reference to which application, Councillor Garcia?
I know you were going to say that and I blooming things just dropped off in front of me. Sorry, let me just get my agenda back. Bear with. It's the one that's...
Is it R18/1247? No, it's R20/0462, land south of Brinklow Road.
That's the one. Thank you
very
much.
Okay. Councillor Eccleston?
Yeah, R16-2569, Ward Councillor, R19-1185. That's partly in our ward as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gillias?
Yes, the same one, Brinklow Road.
Thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Srivastava? You're muted, Councillor. Okay, he's taken his hand down, presumably. All right. 3B, pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. Councillor Roodhouse?
Yeah, an interest in R19 1185 Ashlawn Road, because I've never supported it in public or private.
Okay, so you will leave the meeting for that application.
Yeah,
and
when you ask me to leave.
Yeah, we'll have a short adjournment until we bring you back on that one.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, and finally, C, notice under Section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Okay, thank you. So we move on to applications for consideration, and we're going to change the agenda slightly this evening because of Councillor Roodhouse leaving the meeting, and we're going to start with application R19/1185, land north of Ashlawn Road. And so Councillor Roodhouse, you're going to leave the meeting, and I'm going to ask for confirmation that you have left the meeting before I ask the officer to present.
I can confirm that Councillor Roodhouse has left.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Karen McCulloch, who's the planning officer, for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm you can all see my screen because there's sometimes a delay?
Yes, we can also, well, I can see, and nobody's put their hand up, so.
Okay. Thank you. This application relates to land north of Ashlawn Road, Rugby, which is the approval of reserve matters relating to R13/2102, which granted outline permission for the Ashlawn Road development. This application relates to the areas edge red on the shown site plan, and the area edge blue shows the whole of the Ashlawn Road site. This application proposes the erection of 333 dwellings with the associated access, infrastructure and landscaping. My arrow wasn't working. Right, this is an approved reserve matters application, so we'll be considering the access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale of the second phase of the residential development only. The outline approval already established the principle of the development, the main vehicular access points from Ashlawn Road, and the amounts of open space to be provided, and this also included the site-wide conditions and Section 106 requirements. Members may recall they also had an application which established the site-wide infrastructure, which was the Spine Road and secondary access road, the cycle and footway link to Norton Lees, the sustainable urban drainage works, and the strategic landscaping and open space, including the locations of play areas. This application is for 333 dwellings, which range from 1-bedroom apartments to 5-bedroom houses. 40% of the properties, which is 133 dwellings, are proposed as affordable housing, and the proposals are for a mix of 2-storey, 2.5-storey with rooms in the roof space, and 3-storey properties. Here are views of the site looking from the south at the point of the bridleway. The top one is looking south, looking northeast towards Martin's Farm, and the bottom one is looking straight up the bridleway. Then these are photos from the north, again looking towards Martin's Farm here, and the row of trees that you can see along there is actually along the Ashlawn Road. As mentioned, the principle of development was established by the outline permission. The key issues to assess are therefore the design and layout, including the impact on amenity, the housing mix, affordable housing, landscaping, biodiversity, transport, highways and parking. The proposals for a mix of 2-, 2.5 and 3-storey properties. They're going to be traditional designs with changes in heights, dual aspect properties and changes in materials such as render and cladding used to add interest to the street scene. I've got a variety of the house types on the slide here, and the top 2 elevations, these are actually some of the flats, with one of the flats accessed from here. This is the side elevation with a separate access to the other flat. It's considered that the design is acceptable and that suitable separation is provided both between the properties on the site and the existing properties to the north of the site. Policy H1 sets out the target housing mix, but does say an alternative mix can be considered. The proposals initially included slight under-provisions of 1 and 2 bedroom properties, an under-provision of 3 beds and an over-provision of 4-bed properties. A market report was submitted, but it was considered this did not justify the under-provision of 3-bedroom properties. Amended plans were received which increased the 3-bedroom provision to that required. The slight under-provision of 1 and 2 and over-provision of 4-bed properties is considered acceptable. In relation to affordable housing, the current policy requirement is for 30%, with a tenure split of 84% rented and 16% intermediate. However, the outline application was approved before the local plan, and the Section 106 attached to that requires 40% affordable, with a tenure split of 75% rented and 25% intermediate. The proposal includes 40%, which is 133 affordable units, with 100, 75% as rented, and 33, 25% as shared ownership. This complies with the Section 106 and policy requirements, and the affordable housing mix also complies with the policy requirement. The proposals in terms of open space include the amenity open space areas, which will be part of the development, so along hedgerows, along the bridleway, and sort of within the development areas. And
Karen,
then,
could you wait for a moment? Apparently we've got streaming issues.
okay.
So Stuart, can you please sort them out? Sarah?
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, please, Stuart, could you just pause the stream whilst we just sort this out, and then we'll
Thank you, IT. For members of the public who are watching this, we apologise that there were streaming issues, and although you could hear the presentation from the planning officer, you couldn't see the presentation. So we're going to go back to the start of the presentation and ask the planning officer to start again. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to land north of Ashlawn Road, which was granted outline permission by R13-2102. This is an approval of reserve matters application for 333 dwellings, access, infrastructure and landscaping. The application relates to the areas shown red on the plan here, and the area in blue is the whole of the Ashlawn Road site. The approval of reserve matters application will consider the access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale of the second phase of residential development only. The outline permission already established the principle of the development, the vehicular access points from Ashlawn Road, the amounts of open space to be provided, and the site-wide conditions and Section 106 requirements. Members will also recall an infrastructure application was approved which agreed details of the Spine Road and secondary access road, the cycle and footway links to Northampton Lane, sustainable urban drainage works and the strategic landscaping and open space, including the locations of play areas. This application proposes 333 dwellings ranging from 1-bedroom apartments to 5-bedroom houses. 40%, which is 133 dwellings, of the properties are proposed as affordable housing, and there will be a mix of 2-storey, 2.5-storey with rooms in the roof space and 3-storey properties. These are photos of the site looking from the south at the connection with the bridleway on Ashlawn Road. This one is looking to the northeast towards Martin's Farm, and that one is looking straight up the bridleway. And these are looking from the north again towards Martin's Farm, and along here is the row of trees. Martin's Farm's there as well. As the principle of the development was established, the key issues to assess in this application are the design and layout, including the impact on amenity, the housing mix, affordable housing, landscaping, biodiversity, transport, highways and parking. The proposals for a mix of 2, 2.5 and 3-storey properties, which are based on traditional designs with changes in heights, dual aspect properties, changes in materials such as rendering cladding, used to add interest to the street scene. And dual aspect properties have been used. These are the same building with, this is the side elevation with access to one of the flats in this building, and this is the front elevation with the access to the other one. It's considered that the design is acceptable and that suitable separation distances are proposed between proposed and neighbouring properties. Policy H1 sets out a target housing mix, but states that an alternative mix can be considered. The proposals initially included a slight under-provision of 1- and 2-bedroom properties and an under-provision of 3 bedrooms with an over-provision of 4 bedrooms. The market report was not considered to justify the under-provision of 3-bedroom properties. Amended plans were received which increased 3-bedroom provision, and it's considered that the slight under-provision of 1- and 2-bedroom properties and over-provision of 4 bedrooms is considered acceptable. In relation to affordable housing, the current policy requirement is for 30% affordable housing with a 10-year split of 84% rented and 16% intermediate. However, the outline application was approved prior to the adoption of the local plan, and the outline section 106 requires 40% affordable with a 10-year split of 75% rented and 25% intermediate. The proposals include 133 affordable units with 100 rented and 33 shared ownership. And this complies with the Section 106 and the policy requirements, and the affordable housing mix is also considered to comply with policy. In relation to landscaping, the proposals include the amenity open space areas within the development, which also connect to the wider open space previously approved. They include the planting within development plots and plans proposed native species which were requested by the Tree and Landscape Officer and the County Ecologist. Small sections of hedgerow are to be removed to provide footpath connection, visibility displays and highway infrastructure, and Category C trees at Martin's Farm are also to be removed. There was previously an oak tree adjacent to the bridleway, which was originally identified for retention by the applicants. However, this was damaged in the storms last autumn, as you can see here, and This limb was damaged, and there was also cracking to the trunk. And this tree was removed at the request of the council's tree officer because it was dangerous. And replacement tree planting is proposed in that area. In terms of biodiversity, the county ecologist requested that the biodiversity impact assessment, a construction environmental management plan, and a habitat management strategy should be submitted along with the application. These were submitted and then were amended as requested by the ecologists. The proposals include batbird and hedgehog boxes and hedgehog holes within fences. However, notwithstanding this, the biodiversity impact assessment shows a loss of 8.61 biodiversity units. The outline section 106 attached to the site allows for biodiversity offsetting through financial contributions towards offsetting schemes within the borough. And subject to this requirement, the impact on biodiversity is considered acceptable. In relation to highways, amended plans and additional information were provided following original comments made by the Highway Authority, Warwickshire County Council. The Highway Authority now raised no objection to the proposals on highway safety grounds, and car and cycle parking are proposed in accordance with the council standards, including an over-provision of car parking. The proposals will provide pedestrian links to the overall site and wider area and access to cycle links and public transport. The developments considered acceptable in relation to drainage, water usage, open space provision and heritage assets and broadband infrastructure. And this plan here shows the site-wide open space that's previously been agreed and how the application site, which is in blue on this plan, links into that. It's considered the proposals will provide a suitable design and layout, provide a mix of housing and market and affordable housing, provide suitable landscaping using native species, secure a biodiversity offsetting contribution, will not have an adverse impact on highway safety, and will allow access to sustainable transport links throughout the wider site and surrounding area, and allow the provision of housing in accordance with the outline permission. These factors carry weight in favour of the proposals, and the developments considered to comply with the local plan and the NPPF. Approval is therefore recommended as on the agenda, subject to 2 minor changes to conditions. This is a change to the plan schedule to refer to an updated layout plans which include the provision of a below ground gas governor and alter the rear access path to one of the plots, and also to omit the reference to plot 44 from proposed condition number 6. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen. A very thorough report and presentation. So I'm now going to ask committee whether they have any questions for you on what you have said in your presentation. Are there any questions to clarify what Karen has presented? Oh, loads of hands went up. So I think the first hand up was Councillor Picker, if I'm right.
I actually believe it was Councillor Eccleston. But,
oh, right. All right, if you want to give way to Councillor Eccleston, Councillor Eccleston, you're first.
Very kind of you, Councillor Picker. That's very kind. I was thinking that I'd been ignored, so there you go. Can I ask the officer a question? Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very thorough, as the chair suggested. Could you just explain very briefly how we put evaluation on the offset of the biodiversity in monetary terms? It's just quickly, I don't want to detail, I'd just like to know how it happens.
Okay, through you, Chair. To be honest, it's a very complicated assessment that looks at the habitats on the site at the moment, the age and condition, as well as the size of those areas. It then looks at the habitats that will be created. Again, in terms of area, it also looks at the fact that the habitats that will be created will take some time to mature. This is then, it's put into a spreadsheet which is looked at by the county ecologists and the relevant experts. So I can't say in definite exactly how they come up with those contributions because it's outside of my area of expertise, but the applicants provide the biodiversity assessment calculator to the county council. If the county ecologists then have queries, and there have been cases where there will be questions as to the value of habitat or the type of habitat, that will be discussed till they come up with a contribution, an amount of units which the county are happy with, which they then convert into the contribution.
Thank you.
I just find it rather bizarre that you can monetize something like that. That's all. But
I can see our legal advisor wishes to come in on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to what Karen has stated, the calculator that is used by Warwickshire County Council to translate biodiversity units into financial contributions is based on a DEFRA calculator, so it comes from central government. The kind of approach, if that assists as well.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Councillor Picker, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Karen, for the presentation. Just on landscaping, I know this is a reserved matters application, so this is just more for my peace of mind, but I know that we have previously conditioned that where additional planting is required as part of the development, we've had a condition that if any of it fails within 5 or 10 years, the developer is required to replace it. I can't see that on the existing conditions. So is that covered by, on the draft conditions, is that covered by the existing application sufficiently?
Yes, that will be covered by one of the conditions on the outline permission. I can, if you give me a minute, I can check exactly which one it is, but it will be on there because the outline includes the conditions that will be applicable to the whole site, whatever details come forward for reserved matters.
I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Councillor Gillius?
Yes, Chair. Two things really. The first one is that I know on many occasions we've spoken about energy efficiency and lessening the carbon footprint and the orientation of the development in order so that they can catch the benefit of the sun's rays. I can see that quite a lot of the proposals and the houses there are facing southward, but quite a lot of them aren't. I think that's something we really need to bear in mind, because we're now moving into the 21st century. We want to be thinking in terms of, energy efficiency as much as possible. That's one thing to bear in mind. The other thing is, because the presentation is at a very small scale on the screen, I really would like to see a close-up of the parking arrangements on the dwellings so that we can see that it is going to be, sufficient.
Is that possible, Karen, to go back to that slide and zoom in?
Yeah, I can zoom into the layout if that would be useful. Obviously, it's quite a large layout. In terms of the car parking arrangements, there's going to be a mix of garages and car parking spaces. The proposals include 716 car spaces and 80 spaces within garages. There are actually also 29 other garages which are too small to be counted as parking spaces, so those have been excluded. The requirement would be for 678.5 spaces, so the development exceeds that, and a condition is suggested regarding conversion of garages. Is that enough, or would you like me to try and zoom in on the layout for you?
I would actually like to see the layout, simply because where we get vehicles parking in their parking space end on end, it is a problem for them to get out the car that's the furthest away. And what tends to happen then, they try to park the vehicle on the side of the road, and of course most of these roads are shared driveways, so you end up with major neighbourhood disputes, and I've come across that a lot just recently. And you think with just a little bit of more careful thought on design, all these issues could be alleviated.
Okay, right. Can we see if we can zoom in then, please, Karen, on that one?
If you give me a second, I'll stop sharing the presentation and then I'll try and come back with the plan. Hold on a second.
Could we just clarify? I'm getting a message that recording has started. This meeting is being recorded. Has somebody on the committee started to record this, please?
I think I might have, it's Barbara, sorry. I think I may have accidentally turned my recording on again. I'll turn that off, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see the layout?
Okay, Councillor Gillius.
I'm just about to put on my X-ray specs, and and I can just about see it, but it is very small.
Can you enlarge it a bit?
Oh,
is that any better?
That's better. I mean, it's up to the members of the committee. You know, are they? You know, this is a new development. It hasn't been built yet, and you know, this could be an opportunity to make things just a little bit more improved. There you go. That's just my opinion.
Does that show you what you need?
If I'm right, only some of the parking is end to end by the house. Some of them are in front of the house. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a mixture.
Okay, so Councillor Gillies, there's a mixture of parking there.
Okay, thanks for showing that.
Okay.
Okay. Right, I've still got the message that somebody's recording. Councillor Brown, if it's you, can you stop, please?
I think it has stopped.
Okay, thank you. Right, you've been very patient, Councillor Sanderson, but you've put your hand down now. Does that mean your question's been answered?
No. Can I ask my question now?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of landscaping and biodiversity, will there be in this agreement or as an informative an instruction not to cut the grass around the ponds during the breeding season and the migratory season?
Okay, interesting one. Karen?
I believe that type of thing is covered within the landscape management plan, which the county council commented on. I can look up exactly what it says in terms of that, but certainly it isn't something they raised as an objection.
Well, if you can make it so, I'll be most grateful.
Okay. Councillor Brown? Councillor Mrs. Brown, rather.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for the presentation. Very clear, very comprehensive. My question is, why is under provision of 1 and 2 bedroom units considered acceptable, given that this is an area of greatest need identified in all of our planning and assessment in terms of housing? So what was the criteria used to say this was okay?
Okay, Karen.
Okay, as detailed in the report, the under provision of 1 bedrooms is there's 4% and the target is 5 to 10%. The 2 beds we have 21 and the target is 25 to 30%. The housing mix report that was submitted detailed that although we have larger numbers of single person occupiers and we have couples and couples with children, people within Rugby are generally in a more financial position where they can buy properties looking towards their future need. As I said initially, there was also more demand for 3 bedroom units, which is why we got that amount increased. And the advice I received from the development strategy team was that slight under provision was considered acceptable.
Okay.
Thank you for the answer.
Councillor Eccleston, your hand is still up. Have you got another question?
Yes, Chair, I have. Thank you. Again, through you, just agreeing really with Councillor Gillius's observation there on the lack of solar panels on this development. I would have thought it was an ideal opportunity to have introduced or to have insisted on, as part of the planning, a number of these properties actually actually having solar panels. I see it's happening around the borough and other areas, so I can't understand why it's not happening here on this major development.
Karen, is it covered in one of the conditions with the requirement?
Sorry, I'm just struggling to keep up with all the things I'm trying to answer. Hold on a second.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Richard, have you got the answer to that one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can confirm that condition 16 of the original outline planning permission, it doesn't specifically refer to solar panels, but it does, because it's based on the old core strategy, require that the minimum standard shall comply of a 10% carbon reduction over and above building regulations. So it is something that that the developers may look at. I know we haven't actually had particular details, but that condition is in there, so it is one of the things that developers may look at.
Can I add to that? We did have a report from the applicants in relation to that condition, which building control have commented on. Sorry. They said, based on the report that was submitted, they felt it may be possible to achieve the 10% carbon reduction, but they required additional information from the applicants, and that condition wouldn't be agreed until we've had satisfactory information that building control are happy that they can meet that carbon reduction requirement. In some cases, developers prefer to use other methods, such as improving the insulation of the properties, therefore reducing the energy requirements rather than using solar panels, but that's the sort of thing that will be assessed in that condition. Can I also come back to Councillor Sanderson about the grassland? The habitat management strategy, it refers to the establishment of the grassland. In the first year, it should be cut regularly throughout the winter till April to ensure plant diversity by helping maintain a balance between the faster growing grasses and the slower developing wild flowers. Again, it then goes on to avoiding mowing after wet weather, but it also specifically says that the monitoring of meadow habitat should be undertaken and the cutting regime adapted accordingly. Earlier cuts may be required due to the fertility of the grassland. However, due to the potential for ground nesting birds, this should not be undertaken until the September. So it has been looked at in that.
That's fine, thank you, Karen.
Okay, all right. Reassured, Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to cut them up in the mowers, do we?
Councillor Mrs. Brown, your hand is up. Is that a hand from before?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, I'll take that then.
Okay. All right. So I think that's all the questions of clarification, and we can now move into debate. And as chair, I have to say that following on from last planning committee, where we had grave concerns that developers were not fulfilling the requirement for social housing, on this application we have got 40% of social housing, and all things considered, I'm very happy to propose approval as set out in the officer's report, and I would like a seconder, please. Councillor Butlin, I think your hand was up first. Councillor Butlin, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to second your proposal for the very reasons you've stated, that we've got the kind of social housing requirement in the first place. I must point a little bit of disappointment to the reason why this is here in the first place. This is reserved matters. And in all my experience of all the years I've been doing this, reserved matters is generally left to the officers to deal with because it's mostly technical. And just like we seem to kind of have a trend of calling in and basically the committee trying to micromanage what it goes onto these sites and what is kind of very technical issues. We are not technically competent, but the officers are. So I just kind of voice my disappointment at the fact that it's here in the first place. Bearing in mind also that there is basically every box is ticked on this application, and we should not be looking at this today. It should have been left to the officers. That is my opinion, but I'm more than happy to second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butlin. Councillor Garcia?
I was just going to second it. I completely agree with everything that Councillor Butlin and yourself said. And it's refreshing after last time. I was so disappointed at the lack of affordable housing last time. In fact, not disappointed, absolutely disgusted. So this is fantastic. Well done.
Okay, right. If there are no more comments to be made, we'll move into the vote. So all those in favour of approving this application, please raise your hands now. And keep your hands up until Claire has had a chance to count and verify.
So that's 10 for the proposal, Chair.
Thank you. Hands down. And are there any against? And any abstentions, please? I think we've got somebody who's not voted then. Because we are 11. Is that right, Claire?
Yes, Chair, there's 11 members in the committee at the moment, as Councillor Roodhouse declared an interest and left.
Okay, all right. So that sorts that one out. And what we're going to do now is ask for a short adjournment until we can get Councillor Roodhouse back into the committee then, please. Councillor Brown, you've started recording again.
This time.
So it's on the live stream.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing again. Or does
That's fine. So I'm going to ask our head our head of growth and investment to address committee again about a late submission that we received on this application. Steph, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. That's correct. So I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to the fact that we've received a late submission from Homes England this afternoon. We'd like to present that to members for their consideration when they're considering this application. Karen, as case officer, will take you through the key points, and members will be able to ask any key questions of officers, our legal advisor, or our highways expert, Joe Archer, who's with us this evening. And I can confirm a copy of the letter has been sent to the applicant as a courtesy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. And I will be asking Joanne Archer to speak on the highways matter when Karen gets to that point in the presentation. So Karen, when you get to the part about the highways, once you've finished, if we can ask Joanne to come in and go into some further details on that one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just again checking that you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. This is an outline application for up to 186,500 square metres of buildings, which would be used for use class B8, which is warehousing and distribution, with ancillary office facilities, some land for a fire station, which is 0.4 hectares, with site infrastructure including an energy centre, vehicle parking, landscaping and a sustainable drainage system. It also includes the demolition of station farm and outbuildings, which is here, and all matters are reserved except the means of access from the A45 M45 junction up to and including the link to the crossing of Northampton Lane right of way. As members will be aware from the agenda, various objections have been received from local residents, parish councils and the Save Dunchurch Action Group, and the points that they've raised are addressed in the relevant sections in the agenda. As mentioned by Steph, a letter was received this afternoon from Homes England. They advise that they've secured government funding to assist in the delivery of the South West Rugby allocation, and they welcome and support the application, which they consider is an important first step in the delivery of the allocation. However, they have concerns regarding the delivery of the infrastructure, and I'm sure these points will be assessed and discussed later in relation to the highway issues. They're concerned that the development is not being required to provide all of the Pottsford Dam link. They're concerned that any on-site mitigation may not address any increases in infrastructure costs, and they've questioned how the traffic generation figures as a percentage of the overall development were reached. They also comment that the on-site infrastructure that is proposed as part of the development is that would be required to construct the development itself. They also have concerns that some of the conditions may not secure the delivery of the Pottsford Dam or sustainable transport link if the development is never completed. They consider that the conditions as drafted could prejudice the delivery of the spine road network, which is required as early as possible. And they request that officers should be given delegated authority to address these issues with conditions in the Section 106 heads of terms, but then also comment that it should be the application should be returned to committee. And as mentioned, I imagine these will be discussed in more detail in the highway section. The outline application is to consider the principle of up to 186,500 square metres of B8 buildings with the ancillary B1A office use, a 0.4 hectare site for a fire station, an energy centre and the other infrastructure such as landscaping, parking and drainage, and the demolition of station farmhouse and outbuildings. The details to be considered at this stage are the access from the A45 M45 roundabout, the main access point within the site, and there's a parameters plan which is to be considered that sets out the general layout, development plots, access and strategic landscaping, and that's on the next slide. The future reserve matters applications in the event of this being approved would consider the access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So here's the parameters plan, which is to be considered and sets out the general principles for the development of the site. So we have this is the A45 M45 roundabout where Coventry Road currently comes in here. This will be amended to provide an access here, and Coventry Road will be realigned to join onto that. The fire station plot would then be provided here. There's 4 different development areas which are lettered A, B, C and D. And then this connection will ultimately form part of the Potsford Dam link. This part will ultimately form part of the Sustainable Transport Corridor. As you can see, there's strategic landscape areas with additional landscaping provided to either side of Northampton Lane, and landscape buffers to the site boundaries of differing widths. Here's some photos of the site. This is looking from the A45 onto the site. This is looking towards Station Farm. These are from the southeastern corner looking over to Station Farm, which is in the distance. Then this is from the corner of that plot next to Northampton Lane looking back towards the roundabout, and you can just see a lorry parked there within the existing lay-by. This is looking again from the same part of the site up towards Northampton Lane. This is the gap in the trees where the access road that will ultimately be the Potsford Dam link will be provided. And this is looking along Northampton Lane, which is a earth footpath at the moment. Again, looking from Northampton Lane towards Station Farm Cottage, this is actually outside of the site, but the area up to there is the application site. These are some of the trees within Zone C, which may be lost to the development. Then this is looking from the north. This area in the front is not the application site, and this is the part of the garden for Station Farm Cottage. So the area beyond that here is the application site, again with the trees on Northampton Lane. And this again is looking from within the site to Northampton Lane with the gap in the trees. These are from Bigginghall Lane in Thurleston looking towards the site. Here you can see the existing roundabout. So this is the area of the site, and that's a zoomed in version where you can see a lorry. I think that's probably just coming off the roundabout there. The key issues in this application are the principle of the development, how it ties into the wider southwest allocation and supplementary planning document, transport, highways and parking facilities, public rights of way, air quality, noise and vibration, visual amenity and landscape, heritage assets, the impact on neighbouring residents, trees and hedgerows, and protected species and biodiversity. The site is within an area that's allocated for development by Local Plan Policy DS8. The policy refers to providing 35 hectares of B8 employment use. The overall application site area is 46.2 hectares, which has a net developable area of 33.28 hectares. Development strategy advised that the 35 hectare figure was derived from the employment land study, and this included a requirement for 175,000 square metres of B8 floor space. As mentioned, the proposed maximum floor space of this application is 186,500. However, the NPPF places significant weight on the need to support economic growth, so the provision of additional employment land is considered acceptable. The principle of the B8 use is therefore acceptable. The B1A use and energy centre are proposed ancillary to the B8 use and are also considered acceptable in principle. Policy DS8 includes a requirement for a fire and rescue provision within the southwest allocation, and this is considered acceptable. So the general principle of the use as proposed is considered acceptable. Policy DS8 sets out details of the southwest allocation and refers to the production of a supplementary planning document. The policy also refers to a requirement for the comprehensive development of the allocation. The SPD has not yet been adopted, and numerous objections were received to the consultation. However, the draft SPD carries some weight in decision making. Since the publication of the agenda, the Council have agreed to carry out a consultation on a revised Southwest SPD in the future, but that has not yet been carried out. This plan shows the Southwest indicative master plan from the draft SPD, with the purple area here, which reflects the application site, shown as the employment land. The site area and providing the employment as one phase accord with the master plan and the phasing, which is within the draft SPD. The submission of a separate application for the employment part of the allocation and the submission of this prior to the adoption of the SPD are not in themselves considered grounds to refuse the application, subject to the assessment of all other matters and the development being considered acceptable. In relation to transport, highways and parking, this is one of the key issues with the application, and as mentioned, we have highway officers here tonight to expand on my points. Policy DS9 and the draft SPD set out the requirements for a South West Rugby spine road network. This will include a north to south link here, which goes from the roundabout, crosses Northampton Lane and travels north. An east to, and that's known as the Pottsford Dam link. An east to west link, which will go around Dunchurch, which is known as the Homestead Farm link, and a sustainable transport corridor linking these two roads. Policy state that the proposals for South West Rugby must enable the delivery of the full spine road network as early as possible, and that proposals for development that are shown to have a severe impact on the local road network must demonstrate how they will contribute to the delivery of the spine road network and ensure it is delivered. It also says development proposals will not be granted permission for implementation ahead of the delivery of the Homestead Farm link unless it can be demonstrated that any residual impacts on the highway network are not considered to be severe. As mentioned, the proposals include alterations to the A45-M45 roundabout and access road into the site from this. It includes a realignment in Coventry Road and the connection to this access road, and the parameters plan shows parts of the spine road network. Objections received from local residents and parish councils raised numerous concerns regarding the traffic impacts. Objections to the original submission were also received from the County Highways and Highways England. However, a revised and additional information was then provided, which includes an amended access plan, because this was initially proposed closer to the roundabout, which raised concerns about conflicts. Additional traffic modelling, which considers 2026 and 2031, a framework travel plan, a HGV routing strategy, a road safety audit, and a walking, horse riding and cycling assessment. The modelling for 2031 showed that traffic would increase by 2031 without any additional development. This compared traffic associated with the South West development and mitigation without the proposed development and the traffic once this development was added to the modelling. This showed that with the development, the traffic levels would reduce on most of the local roads, but would increase on the A45 and Coventry Road between the site and the Homestead Farm link. The increase on Coventry Road, however, was less than the increase that would have occurred without any additional development. The 2026 modelling assessed the impact on Dunchurch Crossroads of two scenarios. Firstly, 100,000 square metres of employment and 150 dwellings without the Pottsford Dam or Homestead links, and this led to increases in both the AM and PM peaks. It also assessed the full proposal of employment, 186,500 square metres and 275 dwellings with the Pottsford Dam link, but not the Homestead link. This led to a reduction at the AM peak, but an increase at the PM peak. Due to the increased traffic expected in the 2026 Scenario 1, the County Highways requested measures to mitigate the highway's impacts, which were a HGV routing strategy, improved bus services to the site, and pedestrian and cycle facilities. As Scenario 1 assessed up to 100,000 square metres of employment, County Highways requested a condition, which is condition 18 on the agenda, preventing more floor space than this being occupied unless further highway assessments are carried out and, if necessary at that stage, suitable mitigation secured. Subject to the conditions which are detailed on the agenda, both Warwickshire County Council Highways and Highways England raised no objections to the proposals, and on this basis the impact on highway safety is therefore considered acceptable. I'm not sure if Joe would like to add anything at this point.
Yeah, I think it would be useful if County Highways could come in at this point and perhaps address some of the concerns that were raised and how those have been addressed, and also to talk a little bit more on this whole subject of the link road to Pottsford Dam and the Homestead Road, etc. So I'm not sure who's going to come in and talk on this one, please.
Okay, Jo Archer, I'm here. I've also got colleague Nick Dauncey with me, who's our county modeller, who looks after our modelling for both Dunchurch Crossroads in terms of the LINSIG assessment work that was carried out and the more strategic panoramics modelling. So if they've got any specific questions around modelling, Nick will be able to come in and answer those for you.
Okay. All right. Is there anything that you'd like to go through at the moment or expand on anything that Karen has said, please?
I think the only thing to really add is that obviously as part of the modelling there was impact on Dunchurch Crossroads, which was why we went through the process to try and mitigate against that. So we've got the HGV routing management strategy, the extra bus services and footway, cycleway improvements. There'll still be a residual level of traffic. We estimate to be about 30 to 35 trips through Dunchurch Crossroads. That's akin to an extra vehicle every cycle of the traffic signals. So on that basis, for the 100,000 square metres, the scenario 1 option, we consider that to be not severe enough to object, but that's the basis for us asking for the extra modelling to be carried out before any further development could take place.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Karen, I'm going to hand back to you then.
Thank you. Okay, there are also public rights of way which cross the site. R168 Northampton Lane is to be retained and a crossing provided where it will cross the site access road.
Have we got a slide on that one, please?
Have you got I'm showing a slide with the public rights of way map.
No, we've got due to increased traffic in the 2026 scenario.
Oh, hang on.
That's it. No.
Back.
Yes, we've got it. Thank
Got
you.
it. Okay, sorry, I'll go through that again then. So R168 is Northampton Lane. This is to be retained and a crossing provided at the point where it will cross the site access road. R168Y is to be diverted within the development, and 168D, which is here, and R168E are to be accommodated within landscaped areas. Warwickshire Rights of Way have no objection subject to conditions. Warwickshire Ramblers made an holding objection on the basis that full details of the crossing and the details of the proposed diversion are not known. However, because this is an outline application, we do not have full details of those at this stage, although these will be controlled by a condition and assessed with the reserve matters. Also, any diversions are subject to separate legislation. It's therefore considered the impact on rights of way can be accommodated and is acceptable. An air quality assessment was produced which was based on the traffic generation figures which were agreed by County Highways. The addendum to the environmental statement showed that in 2031 predicted concentrations of nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter would not exceed the annual mean objectives of 40 micrograms per cubic metre, and this plan shows the places where the air quality receptors were assessed. As the proposal is for the development of a greenfield site, it cannot be air quality neutral, so mitigation will be required. As mentioned, the proposals include walking and cycling provision, electric vehicle charging and travel plans. The proposals also include the provisions of parts of the spine road network which are within the site, and the cost of these measures will exceed the air quality mitigation costs that would be calculated in accordance with the draft air quality SPD. The details of the proposed energy centre will be assessed at the reserve matters stage, and this would also be subject to separate regulation, and the impact on air quality is therefore considered acceptable. In terms of noise and vibration, this could occur from construction, the operation of the site and traffic. Traffic noise is based on the agreed traffic generation figures, and the assessment for 2031 showed a reduction in traffic noise with the development and infrastructure provided. In relation to construction, the greatest impact is understandably on the properties closest to the site. A construction method statement is required by condition to agree suitable working arrangements, and a separate condition has been proposed for clarity relating to a construction traffic management plan. In terms of operation, without mitigation, there could be an impact on nearby properties. However, this could also be reduced by the layout of the buildings, the positioning of the service yards and the parking arrangements, and this would be assessed at the reserve matters stage. Conditions are proposed which will require a noise strategy to be agreed, and where this shows that mitigation is required, for this to be agreed and implemented. In terms of visual and amenity and landscape, the proposed development will be visible from outside of the site and in the wider area, including from residential properties. It will also be incredibly prominent from the rights of way within the site itself. A landscape and visual assessment was submitted, which assessed 23 viewpoints as shown on the map, and the original environmental statement included photo montages of 4 locations, which is shown orange on the plan. The addendum to the environmental statement included 2 additional viewpoints, which I've highlighted yellow, which are the right-of-way to north of Thurleston and Biggin-Hall Lane, which is to the south of the site. Photo montages were provided to show the potential impact in years 1 and 15 of operation. The original plans were for maximum ridge heights of 18 metres in zones A and B, which is the southern part of the site closest to the A45, and 23 metres in zones C and D. Amended plans have been received which reduce the ridge heights above ordnance datum to reflect ridge heights of 15 metres in zones A and B and 18 metres in zones C and D. It's considered that this reduces the impact on visual amenity, but will allow lower ground levels if taller buildings are required. And this is the photo montages looking towards the site from near Potsford Dam Farm, just south of the end of the relief road. But it's also worth pointing out that the land in front of the buildings is part of the southwest allocation and would ultimately be developed with housing. These are the other photo montages. This is from right-of-way 185A looking northwest towards the site. And again, you can see the existing traffic on the A45 there with the proposed buildings. The next one is from Biggin-Hall Lane, again looking north towards the site. The proposals involve the retention of trees and hedgerows on the boundaries wherever possible. An additional buffer planting is proposed, which is shown on the parameters plan. An illustrative landscape plan was submitted here. This reflects the layout showed on the parameters plan, although it's not for consideration at this stage, but this shows additional planting belts alongside Northampton Lane, which reflect the strategic landscaping areas here, also to the boundaries, particularly there, and smaller buffers on these boundaries here. The landscape officer expressed concerns regarding the buffer to the north of Zone B, which is this one here, as this was less substantial than the other boundaries. However, as I mentioned, the land to the north of the site is allocated for residential development, which will include its own buffer on the boundary and will also lessen the impact on visual amenity. The detailed design of the buildings will be assessed with reserve matters applications. However, roof form, colour and changes in texture and materials can be used to reduce the appearance of bulk. It's considered that the reduced heights, retention of landscaping and landscape buffers will reduce visual impact. However, the impact still carries some weight against the proposals. Thurleston Conservation Area is located around 370 metres to the south of the site, and there are also 7 Grade 2 listed buildings within a kilometre of the site. The proposals will not lead to any physical works to listed buildings or buildings within the conservation area. However, the development could be visible from these heritage assets, which would result in impacts on their settings. It's therefore considered there will be less than substantial harm to designated heritage assets. Given the distance between the site and the heritage assets and the fact that there are other intervening structures such as the A45, including signage and lighting, trees and hedgerows, etc., the level of less than substantial harm is considered minor. However, the harm to heritage assets must be given considerable importance and weight and must be weighed against the public benefits of the proposals. Archaeological work identified some archaeological features within the site which constitute non-designated heritage assets, and the county archaeologist raised no objection, subject to a condition requiring further works in parts of the site. Residential properties are located close to the application site, and I've highlighted them on the plan here. Shallen House is around 15 metres from the boundary, Mill House around 30 metres, and Station Farm Cottage around 40 metres. Properties on Coventry Road here are around 90 metres from Zone A, which is this measurement here, and over 200 metres from Zone C here. Landscape buffers between 9 and 25 metres wide are proposed to site boundaries, and the illustrative landscape plan shows additional landscaped areas, parking and service areas being situated close to the site boundaries. It is therefore considered that suitable separation distances can be achieved from the existing properties. It is accepted that the outlook from surrounding dwellings will be affected. However, the impact on the view is not grounds to refuse the planning application. In relation to trees, the tree survey identified 172 trees across the site, which were 42 trees within Category A, 117 Category B, and 13 Category C. The existing trees along Northampton Lane are covered by a tree preservation order. As mentioned, the proposals include the retention of tree and hedgerows to site boundaries where possible. However, trees and hedgerows will be affected by the proposed access from the A45 roundabout, the point where the access road crosses Northampton Lane, which will eventually form part of the Potsford Dam link, and the access to the fire station site. The application also referred to the removal of trees and hedgerows within the northern part of the site to provide level site areas. In total, 41 trees are identified for removal. This includes 8 Category A, 30 Category B, and 3 Category C. This includes 3 trees which are covered by a tree preservation order, which are a Category A ash and an oak and an ash, which are both Category B, as well as some areas of hedgerow. The tree officer objects to the loss of high quality trees and the development within root protection area of protected trees. However, the removal of trees to provide the accesses cannot be avoided. The access across Northampton Lane is required by Policy DS9 to provide the Potsford Dam link. And as can be shown on the plans below, these are actually 2 sections of the same plan. So these are the 3 trees that will be removed to provide the link. As you can see, there's actually a gap between these trees. So if you're looking along Northampton Lane in either direction, there aren't any other points with gaps within the trees where you could provide the access. So the position of the access has been chosen to minimise the number of trees that are lost. The loss of trees and hedgerows within the northern part of the site may be required to provide level development plots. However, as details of the layouts are not known at this stage, a condition is proposed requiring justification for these removals. A condition is also required regarding suitable construction techniques where any development is carried out within the root protection area of the protected trees. And again, this you can see on the plans here. So the development plots are the white areas with the sort of brown boundary. So there are some areas where the development plots go into the root protection areas. It's very unlikely that buildings would be proposed in this location, and it's likely to be landscaping or possibly areas of car parking, in which case works can be carried out in a way that will not have an adverse impact on those trees. Sorry, hold on. So subject to conditions, the impact on existing trees and hedgerows does carry some weight against the proposals. In terms of the protected species and biodiversity, the environmental statement and addendum include ecological surveys. The closest site of special scientific interest to the site is Draycott Meadows, which is 1.2 kilometres to the southwest. There's one local wildlife site within the site, which is a ditch that is to be realigned. The former railway line to the west and Corston Spinney Woods to the north are also local wildlife sites. The Illustrative Landscape and Biodiversity Strategy Plan shows a wildlife tunnel under the main access road, a dark corridor to Northampton Lane, and creation of habitats for amphibians, grass snake, bats and birds. Notwithstanding this, the proposals will lead to a loss of 53.45 biodiversity units, and the county ecologist has requested a contribution towards biodiversity offsetting and skylark mitigation, and if a suitable scheme can be identified, it's likely that any contributions could be spent within the wider southwest allocation and close to the site. Conditions are proposed relating to a landscape and ecology management plan, a construction and environment management plan, protected species mitigation plans which will include updated surveys, and requiring a suitable land lighting scheme. Subject to conditions in the Section 106, the impact on protected species and biodiversity is considered acceptable. The development is also considered acceptable in relation to health impact assessment screening, sustainable buildings, drainage, employment generation and agricultural land. Now, the draft Southwest SPD includes a requirement for the provision of the Spine Road network. It sets out the infrastructure costs for the overall Southwest Rugby allocation, which includes the costs for works to the highway in the locality and within the wider area. The SPD explains that a proportion of the costs will be payable by developers of each phase. However, it explains that if a developer is to provide strategic infrastructure, they will then be able to pay a reduced contribution to other infrastructure. DS9 sets out the requirements for the Spine Road network, which includes the Pottsford Dam link and sustainable transport corridor, and the development proposes the access from the A45 roundabout, the part of the Pottsford Dam link within the site, and the part of the sustainable transport corridor within the site. Traffic modelling figures that were agreed by the County Highways shows that this development would lead to 12.58% of the traffic from the Southwest allocation as a whole. The cost of providing the on-site elements of the Spine Road network would exceed the contribution towards 12.58% of the site-wide infrastructure which is included within the draft SPD. It's therefore considered that the contribution towards the wider highway infrastructure is not required due to the on-site delivery of parts of the strategic infrastructure, and conditions are proposed to ensure that this is provided either at a set time or when the county highways serve notice effectively on the applicants to say this needs to be provided. Contributions will be required to biodiversity offsetting, interim public transport contribution and travel plan monitoring, and the Section 106 will also safeguard the land to allow the provision of the fire station. These requirements comply with policies D3, D4, the MPPF and the community infrastructure regulations. Now the planning balance of the application, it's considered the proposals will secure the delivery of the allocated employment site. This will have a positive impact on the economy, including through new and relocated companies and other supporting businesses, and the applicants have advised that they've had about 22 enquiries from companies interested in the site. It will also provide new employment opportunities during construction, which is expected to be around 1,000 jobs, and operation, which is expected to be around 2,400. The development will allow the provision of parts of the Spine Road network, which will lead to the eventual rerouting of traffic away from congested areas. It will provide walking and cycling links to the wider area and a bus service, and will also provide buildings to BREEAM Very Good standards with sustainable drainage methods. These factors carry weight in favour of the proposals, with economic benefits having substantial weight. These are also the public benefits which must be assessed in relation to the heritage assets. However, other factors carry weight against the proposals, such as the loss of the trees and hedgerows, including the 3 protected trees, the potential development within the root protection areas of the protected trees, the impact on the character of the area and the wider landscape, the loss of some of the best and most versatile agricultural land, and the less than substantial harm to the settings of designated heritage assets. However, it's considered that the benefits of the proposal outweigh the factors against it. The proposals comply with the development plan, and no material considerations have been identified to indicate development should not be approved. The development complies with the local plan and the MPPF. Approval is therefore recommended subject to conditions in a Section 106, with amendments to some of the conditions to reflect ongoing discussions with legal officers and county highways, and the addition of a further informative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen. That is an extremely detailed and comprehensive report. This represents a major economic investment in the borough, and the report obviously has tried to go through the concerns that have been raised by a number of people and a number of agencies, and it shows that the planning officers have worked with the outside agencies to address concerns and condition where necessary. So we're going to now move into questions of clarification on the officer's report. So if you have a question on the report to clarify something, I can see I've got quite a few hands in the air. I think Councillor Eccleston, you're first in the line.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, question for highways, please. You mentioned the use of LINSIG modelling at the junction. Well, that's great, but for the benefit of those listening, LINSIG actually just does the signal planning, so it works out the phasing, the traffic signals, etc. It doesn't alleviate traffic in any respect. And the Dunchurch Crossroads, which currently handles 17,500 vehicles a day and is over capacity by a third, is going to struggle with the additional traffic from this site. I don't know whether in your modelling you've taken into consideration any shift patterns from that particular site and where potentially the employees are going to come from. But shift patterns in these industrial sheds, warehouses, tends to be right across the day, and that affects the peak traffic periods. And you mentioned peak traffic periods also within your presentation. The junction of the Dunchurch Crossroads, the B4429 and the A426, is getting busier and busier as traffic is leaving the A45, travelling through Dunchurch now past Thurleston and turning right onto the A46 to go down to Banbury and the M40. That's becoming a rat run, and that junction just can't cope. Now, you're not actually planning on widening that junction. I mean, there's some work. There's some work to be done next year, but that's part of the actual road development. What is going to happen to the traffic along that B4429? It's a dangerous piece of road already. There have been accidents at the junction with Thurleston. I know that the parishioners at Thurleston are concerned about that, and I certainly know that Dunchurch is concerned about the increase in traffic there above and beyond the 17,500 traffic movements a day.
Councillor Eccleston, it is supposed to be questions, not debate. Right, can I ask County Highways to address the questions that you've raised about the impact on the crossroads, the modelling and taking note of shift patterns? Joanne and Nick, who's going to answer this, please?
Okay, I'll start. And then Nick can come in, he knows far more detail about the modelling. So in terms of the traffic that's forecast to go down to Dunchurch Crossroads, I think in my note through to Karen, we'd identified that there's likely to be an additional 87 trips in the morning peak and 189 in the PM peak for the 100,000 square metres scenario 1. And it's on the basis of that impact that we says, okay, we need more mitigation. So that was when developer came through with obviously the HGV routing management strategy in a way to control the amount of HGV traffic that will route that way, to make sure that where possible they use all the routes. We said we're going to need some interim bus services there and designed to coordinate with the shift patterns so that people can get to work by public transport at the times that they need to be there and leave from, as well as providing improved pedestrian and cycle facilities to try and encourage people to shift to more sustainable modes of transport to get to and from work. With those in place, as I said when Karen stopped her presentation, we think that should bring the numbers down to around about 30 to 35 trips during the peak hours, and that equates to about one extra vehicle each cycle of the traffic lights.
Thank you. Nick, modelling?
Yes, I can agree with those figures. We've looked at the effect of the HGV routing agreement and assumed a 10% shift in mode away from private car onto sustainable modes. which is a relatively conservative assessment in our view. So the application of those measures has brought the level of impact down to something which is more acceptable.
Thank you. Right.
Can I just, for clarification, Chair, through you, has in the modelling, has the increase in traffic forecast from the Ashlawn Road development also been taken into consideration?
It has, yes. All committed developments that have got planning permission are included in the background assessment. In addition to the proposed mitigation scheme that's coming forward, as you mentioned, from the Ashlawn Road development.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Next in line is Councillor Butlin.
Thank you, Chair. I was kind of quite happy with this application. I'd looked at it in detail and all the kind of highways developments, and also I kind of had a first-hand knowledge of what was going on with the links. What does concern me was that first presentation from from Homes England, and their concerns about the completion of the links and the possibility of compromising of delivery of further land adjacent to it. Now, when you consider there's a fair chunk of Rugby Borough Council's local plan in there, to compromise the delivery of that adjacent land for housing would compromise Rugby a great deal. What I'm looking for is an assurance from the officers that we can condition in or have a condition that will basically make sure that those link roads are completed and not compromised by this application.
Okay, can I ask our head of planning to take that one, please? And also, I'm not sure if head of growth and investment would like to come back on that one. So Richard and Steph, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm aware that there are conditions and requirements as part of the legal agreement. What I will actually do is I think the officer Karen and also through Joe Archer I know have been discussing this in some detail. So what I will actually do is defer to them, because so they can give you a much more comprehensive response. So if you bear with me, they may be able to actually answer that in a bit more detail than myself.
Thank you. Okay, Karen.
Yeah, I'll come back on the conditions point, because looking at it's conditions 16 and 17, which relate to the delivery of the parts of the infrastructure within the actual application site itself. And the concern of Homes England was that the condition says prior to the first occupation of the last unit within Zone C. And they're saying that if the last unit within Zone C never becomes occupied, the developers would never actually have to provide the link up to the boundary. But actually that's addressed in the condition, because we also have, or if earlier, within 3 months of written notification of construction from the County Council to the developer of the commencement of the remainder of the sustainable transport link. So if Zone C is not completed, but the county have started building the other bit of the road and it needs the connection, they can give notice to the applicants that they then have to provide, they have to apply for permission or reserve matters for the bit of the link within the site, and then within 12 months they shall then provide it. So that addresses the fact that even if they never occupy the last unit within Zone C, it doesn't mean that those two links will never be built to the site boundary. In relation to the rest of the infrastructure, condition 18 is a fairly detailed condition, which is to address the situation when more than 100,000 square metres of development is occupied. That at that stage, an assessment would need to be carried out of the highway network in relation to any other infrastructure that's already been delivered or secured. And if mitigation is then at that stage required, that needs to be agreed with the highway authority and then provided, which may be the remainder of the Potsford Dam link. It may be other works to other junctions, depending on what's felt necessary at that stage, which will also be influenced by what other development has or has not come forward at that stage.
Does that answer? answer your question, Councillor Butlin? You're still muted, Councillor.
My one concern is that Homes England have bought all this land with it on the kind of condition that that they could put in an early delivery of the Homestead Link, and basically kind of they're forward funding that instead of having to wait for funding from the building of houses to build that link. It will be built at the beginning. Now that means that Homestead Link will be put in at a very early stage rather than a later stage, and it might not be kind of compliant with this application in terms of their timescale. And also bearing in mind having that Homestead Link in is going to take a lot of the pressure off Dunchurch Crossroads. It is important that we have an understanding or even condition that the delivery of those links is not compromised by this application. So far, they're making the right noises, but I need assurance from someone like Joe Archer or someone to the county to make sure that we have got that assurance.
Do we need to condition this on this application? Karen, Richard?
I mean, as I mentioned, the advice I've had from Highways is that they are happy with up to 100,000 square metres on this application without those links being provided, but we need to review it at that point to see what else is required at that stage.
I think Councillor Butlin's point is, though, that he wants an assurance that Homes England and this Homestead Link is not going to be delayed because of this particular application. Am I right?
Yeah.
This application up to 100,000 square metres is considered acceptable without the Homestead Link happening. Because the Homestead Link is not within this site area, the approval of this application will not prevent them providing the Homestead Link at an earlier date, which would probably be beneficial for everybody.
Okay, right. County, can you come back on this, please? Because I think Councillor Butlin would like some assurances.
Yes, in terms of the modelling that was carried out with both Pottsford Dam Link and Homestead Link in, everything like Dunchurch Crossroads and other places is much improved. If with just the Pottsford Dam Link modelling, that's enough to mitigate for all of the this site's development traffic. But what we haven't got at the moment is the extra full Pottsford Dam Link. So that's why we're effectively saying cap this at 100,000 square metres. Then if you want to develop more than that, you're going to have to come in and do some more modelling to see what the situation is then. If Homestead Link has already been provided or is on course for provision by, say, 2026, 2027, when they're looking to build out more development, then the modelling will probably show that with just the Homestead Link, it might be enough.
Okay, hopefully that's answered your questions, Councillor Butlin.
I'm happy.
Thank you. Councillor Gillies, you're next on my list.
Yes, Chair, thanks for allowing me to speak. The issue on this one, we've seemed to address the local road network issues, but my thoughts are also with the impact on the greater road network. Because vehicles travelling to the north, the M6, M1, maybe A14, will be going up the A426, around the Western Relief Road and up the Leicester Road, which is already a bottleneck and is causing great concern in my patch because it creates rat running through the village of Harbour Magna and some of the smaller villages. So it's going to have a massive impact. I can only give you a comparison, a real life comparison of the Magna Park development. 1.4 million square feet of warehousing just under completion to the south of Magna Park. This particular application is for just over 2 million square feet of warehousing. Magna Park at the moment, in the central part, they employ nearly 8,000 people working on various shifts. The computer modelling won't tell you exactly where they come from home and how they get to their place of work. And that is the issue. because we're unable to determine how vehicles are getting there and the rat running and how to compensate for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gillies. It should be a question, not a long speech. So,
okay, the question is, what are we going to do about mitigation for the wider local area?
Thank you very much. Who's going to take that one?
That's probably best fielded by Nick, if you're able to, Nick.
Thank you. Yes, I can address that question. One of the key constraints on the network is the A426 Leicester Road corridor. So what the modelling has done is to assess what the impacts on that corridor of this development would be. There doesn't appear to be any evidence based on the anticipated distribution of trips that conditions on the corridor would be materially worsened by this particular application. We are working at the moment with Highways England to look at the potential improvements for the Gibbet Hill roundabout to the north of Rugby on the A5, where there are multiple committed developments, including Durft, Magna Park, and the recently considered Lutterworth East a sustainable urban extension. All of those developments plus other developments will have an impact on that part of the network. So we are working at the moment with Highways England, who are in the process of developing a composite scheme to address the cumulative impacts of that location. We are also working with the Department for Transport to bring forward a scheme for improvements at Avon Mill. So we are progressing towards outline business case stage, having been awarded approximately £200,000 scheme development funding for Avon Mill. So we're hoping to get a scheme implemented at that location by 2025. There are other parts of the Leicester Road corridor which we will be looking at in terms of the development which is now coming forward at Coton Park East on the corridor itself, where there's more of a direct impact on those particular locations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Happy with that, Councillor Gillies? Answer your question?
Well, sort of. I'm still not really happy because you know, there's going to be a bigger impact on the road network, and what I want to do, I want to get people to and from their place of work quickly and efficiency without hold-ups, because what happens is that they find rat runs and other ways of getting there, and that creates lots of problems for other communities.
Well, I'm sure the officers from County Highways have heard what you've got to say and will bear that in mind. I've got Councillor Garcia and Councillor Roodhouse. I'm not sure whose hand went up first.
Ladies first, then.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor.
Always.
I'm okay with that, Councillor Roodhouse.
Yeah.
Left myself a little wide open there, but hey ho. Right, it's just a clarification really for me. On page 21 to 22 of the report, it says about the link road to Pottsford Dam, but it says it's not actually joined to the roundabout, and I just wondered why it wasn't joined to the roundabout, and why would you want an extra junction?
Okay, would somebody like to answer that question, please?
Yes, I can hopefully answer that particular question. The original plan for the Pottsford Dam link showed an indicative alignment which connected with Corston Bends, as it's become known. Since that initial indicative alignment was produced, Tritax Symmetry have put forward a potential alternative alignment which ties directly in with Pottsford Dam roundabout.
Oh, thank you so much. That's helped a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lovely. Councillor Roodhouse, at long last.
Thank you, and can I thank you for the presentation? A couple of questions. The first is around similar to Peter Butlin's really, and with Homes England. I'm just trying to seek those assurances about the letter and that has come in, and about the finishing of the road. Really, I'd still feel a bit uneasy from what I've been told tonight. That's point one. Point two really is to our planning officers. I know they're going to build to BREEAM standards, very good. were they actually being pushed to go to outstanding or excellent? Because very good is only middle of the road, really. If they were going to be doing it, shouldn't they be at excellent? And the last point, really, I still have great concern about the trees and the mitigation measures for that.
Thank you. Okay, who'd like to answer?
Can you give me a second and I'll look up the stuff about BREEAM? Hold on a second.
Okay, right. Councillor Sanderson, you'll be next.
Just to confirm, Chair, we're still in questions and not general debate.
We are still in questions, yes.
Thank you.
It's very difficult, I know, for people to be concise without a little bit of explanation sometimes. But we are straying a bit into debate, I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay for me to come back?
Yes, please.
In relation to the BREEAM standards, the very good standard is what's included within our policy, which is what they have said they will comply with. They have also said in this case that they would seek to achieve an energy performance certificate A rating in addition to the BREEAM very good standard.
Okay. And trees was the other question. I imagine that Councillor Sanderson's also going to raise concerns about the loss of trees.
Sorry, I missed the question about the trees from.
It's trees. Councillor Roodhouse has got concern regarding the loss of trees, and I'm second guessing Councillor Sanderson's also going to raise trees.
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is.
Should he let Councillor Sanderson?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I might have 2 points. I note that they're promising combined heat and power. Well, we've had lots and lots of promises to deliver combined heat and power, and no one has actually delivered it. Would we not have been better looking at a solar array on top of the building? Second point, in terms of the trees, I note from the report that we could lose 41 of the 43 trees which were good to moderate, but aren't trees part of the solution? For example, they're good at reducing light emissions, light pollution, dust emissions, and groundwater. Shouldn't we actually be planting a lot more trees on that site rather than removing 41?
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Karen, trees and
combined heat and power.
Combined heat and power instead of solar.
Okay, I'll go for the combined heat and power first. The applicants have chose to put in the proposals for the energy centre. What they're looking to do, although they don't know the details at this stage, is possibly to include solar power within that and on-site combined heat and power. We don't have any policies to insist that they do this, although it is a bonus that they are considering it. And then in terms of solar arrays on the buildings, that may be something that occupiers look to do in the future, which we wouldn't have an issue with, but I don't think we've got policy grounds to insist on them doing that. And just let me find the bit about trees.
I'm particularly concerned that because there's a housing development going alongside of it, you say.
Although I think Karen did say that they're anticipating that the housing scheme will actually be building trees along the...
Building trees, that's a novel concept.
Oh, planting trees, sorry. Yeah. You know what I mean.
Karen.
I found it, sorry. I mentioned the losses of the trees, and I've now scrolled my keyboard and I've now lost it again. Sorry.
.8 is one of them.
Thank you.
If that helps. And 15.12 refers to condition 35, as does 15.3. Does that help you?
No, I was looking for the section that had about the planting. 15.14. Yes, there are the proposals include the removal of trees, as we've mentioned. As I said, the parameters plan is being considered at this stage, which has the landscaping buffers, and the illustrative landscape strategy, which is included in the addendum, details that the development in accordance with the parameters plan will include the planting of around 4 kilometres of additional hedgerow, including trees, and approximately 230 additional native trees.
Okay. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, we've got Head of Planning with his hand up. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious that Councillor Roodhouse mentioned something about the, or following on from Councillor Butlin, and was talking about the Homestead link and reassurances. Yeah. I don't know if the county highways want to sort of re-emphasise the sort of benefits of that, and how, I mean, I know Joe Archer had mentioned some of it, whether that would actually be beneficial to members as well.
Okay. So, Joanne, are you there?
I'm here, yes. In terms of the modelling, clearly Homestead Link and Potsford Dam Link are necessary to mitigate for all of the South West Rugby development. The modelling for this site alone shows that without the Potsford Dam Link, aside from the element that will need to be provided in terms of serving the site access arrangements, we're happy to go with up to 100,000 square metres. Beyond that, any more traffic may have impacts on key parts of the network, such as Dunchurch, Crossroads, maybe Rugby Gyratory, Blue Boar and the like. So at that point, for further development, we will need to see more modelling to see what mitigation at that point in time will be necessary. When that modelling is carried out, Homestead Link may or may not already be provided on the ground, and there may be other infrastructure improvements that will need to be included in the network that is used for modelling purposes. But we'll look at the impacts at that point, and if they need then to mitigate for impacts at Dunchurch, Blue Boar, Gyratory, wherever, those extra mitigation measures will need to be brought forward. That may include providing all of Potsford Dam Link. In one of the scenarios that was tested, with all of the Potsford Dam Link in place and all of this development site's traffic, that was sufficient mitigation. So even without Homestead Link being modelled. Does that answer the question?
All right, thank you for that. Karen, you've been under the microscope, so to speak, for at least 2 hours now, which isn't easy. Before we move into debate, I'm going to ask our legal if they can just refresh everybody's minds about material considerations, because I'm conscious that we had a lot of objections and concerns raised by residents, by the parish councils and by the Ramblers, and I think those who are listening need to have their memories refreshed about what are material considerations that we can actually consider when we're making our minds up, please. So Sarah, please.
Thank you, Chair, and hello members of Planning Committee. As I'm sure you'll all remember from your planning training when we went through the material considerations, and there are certain ones that can be considered as a material consideration for planning purposes and certain ones that are not. Now, I'm aware that residents and locals to the development will have raised a number of legitimate concerns that we'll be sensitive to, but it's important that when we're making our planning decisions, we're not considering matters which are not legitimate planning matters. So things that are material planning considerations are things such as overlooking loss of privacy, loss of light or overshadowing, parking, highway safety, traffic, noise, layout and density of buildings, design and appearance, proposed development plan, government policy and nature conservation. Those matters which are often raised by those closest to developments and are legitimate concerns but aren't material planning considerations are things such as loss of a view, negative effects on the value of properties and personal circumstances of the particular resident when they're making their representation. And so hopefully that just helps refresh the mind when you're weighing up your various considerations.
Right, thank you very much for that. All right, committee, we're now going to move into debate, and I think we've already had quite a lot of debate because obviously some of your questions required a bit of explanation. Councillor Eccleston, you're first, followed by Councillor Picker and then Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Eccleston.
Sorry, I was muted. My apologies. Thank you, Chair. Well, as we've heard, there've been a number of concerns from my ward constituents in Dunchurch, Draycott, Princethorpe, Stretton and others. I've got some serious concern and I'm very unsettled about many of the aspects of this development. There's uncertainty around those, particularly around traffic, as I mentioned earlier, but particularly as well around biodiversity issues. You know, we've heard on many occasions now that biodiversity and the state of our planet, if you like, is key to the future of our children and grandchildren, etc. And we can't lose sight of the fact that this is a huge development that will create masses of commuter traffic in the area. It's going to disturb the biodiversity balance within the area. We appear to be suggesting that we could go against our own tree officer's recommendations with the removal not only of protected trees but of other mature trees that are in very good condition. We're looking to tear out hedgerows, and whilst I listen to all of the issues around biodiversity, offsets, etc., you know, has anybody told the various species that they're being paid to move or whatever? So I think biodiversity is paramount to our planet, and it's something very close to my heart. And I would suggest that Warwickshire, being centre of rural England, you know, we should be leading the way on this, albeit in a very small way, perhaps, but we should be putting a lot of emphasis onto these biodiversity issues in this area. Not only are we looking at destruction of nature, but we're also looking at moving things like ditches, ancient ditches, etc. So I don't think we can agree to ignore the recommendations of our tree officer. I don't think we can ignore the destruction of the environment, and I don't see how we can accept the limited mitigation for some of these ideas. I think there's too much uncertainty around this particular application as it currently stands on traffic and on biodiversity, and as such, on that basis, I would like to move refusal of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Eccleston. Right, you will need, can I just check that the grounds that Councillor Eccleston has given for refusal are valid, please?
Yeah, I understood the grounds that were provided, and I would suggest that if Councillor Eccleston is amenable, his proposal for reasons for refusal include a delegated authority to planning officers to draft the detail of those reasons.
Which is what we normally do.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, happy with that, Councillor Eccleston?
I am.
And then it was Councillor Picker was the next hand up. His hand's gone. I've lost him. Okay, Councillor Sanderson instead. Councillor Sanderson, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now, Chair.
Thank you.
I mean, my concern is I have some sympathy with what Councillor Eccleston said, but what Dunchurch Parish Council and Thurlaston Parish Council asked us to do was to defer our decision until the SPDs were in place. As you know, the consultation on those SPDs has been somewhat delayed. I'm also concerned about the comments of Homes England. I don't think we got all our ducks in a row on this one, and I would like to see the officers go away and have some further conversations with Homes England and Dunchurch and Thurlaston councils, and come back with some of those ducks in a row, and to meet the reassurances that both Councillor Butlin requested and which Councillor Roodhouse requested. So I would suggest, Chair, we should certainly consider a deferment this evening until we have the relevant information that we require.
Okay. Can I have some clarification, please, on that from either Head of Growth or Legal or Head of Planning, please?
Sarah, are you happy to pick that one up, please?
Yeah, through you, Chair. We can defer for further consideration if members feel that is appropriate, and would need a seconder, a proposer and a seconder as per normal for that motion.
Thank you. And we'd also need a seconder for refusal as well, wouldn't we? At the moment, we've got a proposer, but not a seconder.
Absolutely.
Can I second Councillor Sanderson's proposal for deferment?
Okay, thank you.
For the reasons he stated.
Okay. Are those reasons acceptable, Legal, please?
Yeah, if councillors feel there is more information required and more investigating to be done by officers and fair time for that to be done, then that's a reason to defer.
Okay.
That would be what I want to go for, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Pickett has his hand up, but Karen has her hand up. I don't know if you want to come back, Karen.
Let Karen go.
If that's okay, I just wanted to clarify with Councillor Sanderson. I'm aware he wanted the deferment in order to discuss the concerns raised by Homes England. He was also talking Dunchurch and Thurlaston.
Yes.
You also mentioned the SPD, but are you suggesting we defer until the SPD is adopted?
I think we'd need some advice from the Head of Growth and Investment of when those SPDs are actually going to be properly consulted on.
Can I just come in here, because this is an outline planning application, and I'm wondering if some of the reasons that you want it to be deferred would actually be addressed on the reserved matters.
I'd rather have the deferment now, Chair, than try to second guess what might happen or might not happen.
Okay. Right, Councillor Picker, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I do have a lot of sympathy for the comments that have been made by other councillors, and I think we are in a rather difficult position that a lot of the issues that I think have been raised are going to be picked up at the reserved matters stage. I believe back when we first looked at the Homes England letter, that mentioned that they wished that the reserved matters application came before committee again. That's something that actually, in contrary to the previous application we've just considered, I have a lot of sympathy for that position, because I think that there are some things that we are going to need to look at again at the reserved matters stage. So I wonder whether, for some of my colleagues, considering the reserved matters application once it comes in, might be preferable to deferring the decision this evening.
Thank you. Okay, Karen, do you want to come back on that? No, she doesn't. Councillor Garcia, you're next then.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
I think some of the things that members are raising concerns about, and also that Homes England are concerned about, won't be picked up through the reserve matters, because that would be looking at the access, appearance, layout and so on within the actual development rather than the wider highway infrastructure. In terms of things coming back to committee, Homes England, sorry, I think I called them Highways England, Homes England, they asked for officers to be given delegated authority to resolve the issues and then to return to planning committee with revised planning conditions, which is contradictory, because if we're given delegated authority we wouldn't revert to planning committee. So I'm not entirely sure what they're hoping to achieve in that statement.
So can we clarify then that we could delegate to planning officers to resolve and come up with the conditions that would satisfy Homes England?
Through you, Chair, that could be a delegated authority, but that wouldn't then come back in front of members to assure members that they were happy. It would be left with officers.
But officers are now fully aware of the committee's concerns. So if we delegate it to officers, they are duty bound to make sure that committee's concerns are addressed.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gillius.
Yes, Chair, I've got quite a bit of sympathy with Councillor Picker's request there. I think that would be quite a good idea. It would give officers a chance to deal with the issues raised by Councillor Eccleston and other councillors. And I would like to think that we could get a bit of support on and move this forward. It's the sort of thing that's going to happen, but it wants to happen in the right way with the right decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm conscious Councillor Eccleston has moved for refusal, but I just wanted to come back on the tree comments and the biodiversity comments, if that's okay. Biodiversity offsetting is something that is actually promoted by the national government, and Warwickshire County Council is actually one of the leading authorities in the entire country on biodiversity offsetting. I think we had one of the first applications that actually ever went to appeal that considered the biodiversity offsetting. The sort of head of ecology at Warwickshire County Council is one of the leading figures in this, and has been approached, including Rugby Borough Council, for research from abroad, because we are leading in this field. So I can assure members that when it comes to the biodiversity offsetting and the detail that's actually in the section 106 and what we actually achieve, we are, I suppose, to some extent, very well informed. We have very good advisors on that. In relationship to the trees, obviously, as Karen had mentioned, there are three protected trees that would be lost as part of development. Now, obviously, the tree officer, his responsibility obviously is to look after and protect those trees from elements of development, but it's obviously for us as officers and planning committee to balance up the pros and cons of a scheme. And I mean, I just wanted to just so members were aware, this is a matter we have considered before, where we've lost protected trees in order to facilitate then development coming forward. Members may recall the Herbert Grey College application where that happened. So again, it's not an unknown entity. So I just wanted to make those points so members were clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Butlin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit frustrated by in some respects, I was kind of quite happy with the application. I've seen all the kind of pros and pros and against, and bearing in mind that we are going into a recession caused by COVID, and we're kind of I'm also mindful of the fact that we've kind of got a shortage of employment land, and anything that creates jobs has got to be a big plus as far as I'm concerned. So I was going into this with that in mind. Also, as Karen pointed out at the beginning of her presentation, in principle, the principle which was designed and set out by us in terms of the local plan, it is correct for this to go in that place. So the principle's already set. So kind of like the preservation of rural England argument, etc., biodiversity almost falls flat on its face. So the principle of putting it there was correct. What concerned me right at the very beginning of this was the concerns with Homes England in terms of kind of the completion of the scheme, and also kind of making sure that our local plan is sustainable and will go forward. Now, Karen read out me the condition, and I thought the condition fitted in the bill, and we could make sure that they kind of finish those links with or without the completion of that last unit. So when she said that and read it to me, I was happy, alongside with all the mitigation that goes with the rest of the county council stuff that we went in terms of protecting Dunchurch Crossroads. So on that basis, when you consider the principle is already set by us in the local plan, we need employment land, and the mitigation against non-completion of the link road and further development is not compromised. I feel that I would like to kind of move for approval of this application on those grounds. I think we can, if there needs to be kind of further clarification or beefing up of those conditions, we can leave that to the officers to do. They've heard our concerns and they can take a look at it, and I trust them to do it.
Okay, right. I've got quite a few hands up. I'm going to take Councillor Srivastava next, and then Councillor Cranham.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think development is very good on the economic considerations, but I think what Councillor Picker has said, I see some of the conditions need to be referred back to the officers, and if they can come back as he suggested, we can be more, it can give more better clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Cranham.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Butlin has taken the words out of my mouth. This is a significant economic investment in the town, and when we're through this dreadful situation that we find ourselves in now, we will need every investment we can get, and we will need every job that we could get. I understand members' concerns, but we're looking at thousands of jobs and people are worried about 3 trees. I think there's plenty of mitigation put in against all the things that people have raised concerns with. So I will second approval.
Thank you, Councillor Cranham. Councillor Picker.
Councillor Cranham has beaten me to it. I was going to second approval, and he said, as has Councillor Butlin, a lot of the things that I think need to be said. At the end of the day, this is compliant with the local plan policies, particularly in relation to employment land, and this site was allocated in our local plan that was approved by us as councillors for economic development, and that was done just over a year ago now. We're obviously in a very different world in many respects, but delivering these kinds of economic abilities at this time is of paramount importance, I think. So I think we do need to approve this, but again, I would be happier if the reserved matters can come back to us so that we can look again at some of the concerns that have been raised this evening. But I will support this application.
Councillor Garcia.
Sorry, I didn't get my turn earlier, so my hand was still up. But yes, I'm completely happy with this application. I would have proposed and seconded it myself. And I think, you know, it's been on their desk for quite some time. I think it's probably the first time was about 2017. So I think actually it really does need moving on.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you very much. It'll get my support.
Councillor Sanderson, your hand, is that still up or is it another question?
No, it's down, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gillies.
Yes, Chair, just to add 1 or 2 comments. Don't forget we're in the process of consulting the white paper, Homes for the Future, and that is, you know, creating places to live that build happy communities, and not just new communities, that's existing communities as well. So we've got to bear that in mind. And I do hope that the officers take all these comments on board and to come up with the conditions accordingly. But one thing, I'll mention this on the previous application, and which was echoed by Councillor Eccleston, was the fact of the PV panels on roofs. Now, one of Symmetry's competitors is IDI Gaisley, and they have now agreed to fit photovoltaic panels on the roofs of the 4 warehouses that I mentioned a little earlier. So they've got to step up to the mark and do the same thing.
All right, I think our officers now have got the message to push for photovoltaic on houses as we go. Now, we have a refusal proposed by Councillor Eccleston, but no seconder. Is there anybody seconding that one? In that case, we won't be considering that. We then have deferral proposed by Councillor Sanderson and seconded by Councillor Roodhouse. And then we have approval proposed by Councillor Butlin and seconded by Councillor Cranham. Can I have advice, please? Do I do the deferral first?
Yes, please, Catherine.
Okay. Right. So all those in favour of deferral as proposed by Councillor Sanderson and seconded by Councillor Roodhouse, please show now. Okay.
So that's 2 for the motion, Chair.
Thank you. Hands down. Those against deferral, please show.
That's 10 against, Chair.
Okay. Is that everybody voted? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. So if you can lower your hands, please. We'll now go into the substantive proposal, which is proposed by Councillor Butlin, seconded by Councillor Cranham, that approval as per the report and the conditions. Sarah, do you want to come in at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify, is it as per the report and conditions, or is it with that additional delegated authority for officers to look at the Homes England concerns?
With the delegated, yes, please.
Yeah.
Delegated authority to officers to address the concerns raised by Homes England.
Thank you.
Right, are we all clear on what we're voting for?
Sorry.
Karen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, can I just come back that there were some changes to the wording of the conditions that differs from what's on the agenda. So
right, so it's the report plus the conditions plus the amendments plus the decision to delegate authority to officers. Have I got it right, Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, right, so hands up, all those in favour of approving the application subject to what we've said.
That's 8 for, Chair.
Thank you. Hands down, and then those against.
That's 2 against.
Thank you. And then any abstentions? Somebody's got the microphone on. How many abstentions?
3.
Okay, so can we have the votes numbers again, please? Those in favour, please, were Claire. How many voted for?
So we had 8 for, 2 against, and now we've got two abstentions.
Okay, so that means that application is approved. Thank you everybody for a very good debate, and big thank you to the planning officer. She's had a long time to go through all of that, and it's obviously been a mammoth task to get the report and the presentation ready for us. Thank you. Right, we're going to move on then to the next one, which is R20/04862, which is land south of Brinklow Road, and it's Paul Varnish to present. If I'm right.
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed.
Okay, I'll just explain. Halfway through the previous presentation, the sound on my laptop has gone. I can speak to you through my mobile phone, and I can see you on the computer. So I'm going to carry on that way, and I think it'll work. So okay, here we go.
So where's the presentation coming from?
It's the my computer's working, so you bear with me 1 second now. Let me try that again.
Do we need to have a short adjournment? Well, no.
No, it's going to come up. There we go. Okay, so this application is for the land to the south of Brinklow Road. The application is for a temporary construction compound to serve the A46 Coventry Junction improvements to the Binley and Walsgrave schemes. The application is brought before committee as it constitutes a major application. Okay. The application site is located within the green belt and will be considered fallow agricultural land. The location of the application site is illustrated by the yellow circle. To the south is Broad Street Rugby Club, the Ivor Priestfields. The red circle to the south is the Binley Junction, or what's classed as the TGI Fridays Junction, which is the first one to be upgraded. The red circle to the north is the Walsgrave Junction, which will be upgraded after. The blue circle represents the Coombe Pool Triple SI, which is a site of special scientific importance. To the west is the residential area of Binley within the jurisdiction of Coventry City Council. The red star indicates roughly where the access is onto Brinklow Road. To the north, east and south is the green belt. The site is partially located within a flood zone 2 and 3.
Can you hold it there, please,
sorry,
Paul? Yeah. Because apparently we're not streaming again, so we're going to have a short adjournment while Stuart tries to sort it out, please.
Okay, not a problem.
Thank you very much. So we're going to go back to the start of the officer's presentation because we had streaming issues. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. This application is land to the south of Brinklow Road. The application is for a temporary construction compound to serve the A46 Coventry Junction improvements, which are the Binley and Walsgrave schemes. The application is brought before committee as it constitutes a major application. The application site is located within the green belt and will be considered fallow agricultural land. The location of the application site is illustrated by the yellow circle. To the south is Broad Street Rugby Club, the Ivor Priestfields. The red circle to the south is the Binley Junction, or TGI Fridays Junction, which will be the first to be upgraded. The red circle to the north is the Walsgrave Junction, which will be upgraded after. The blue circle represents the Coombe Pool Triple SI, which is a site of special scientific importance. To the west is a residential area of Binley within the jurisdiction of Coventry City Council. The red star indicates roughly where the access is onto Brinklow Road. To the north, east and south is the green belt. The site is partially located within a flood zone 2 and 3. Just in context, the upgrade to the junction will create a flyover, which can be seen on the slide. All of the works to upgrade the junctions fall under the Highways Act 1980 and therefore do not require planning permission. This application focuses solely on the construction compound. In terms of the site layout, this indicates that there is, to the top left, the flood zone. The compound comprises porta cabins, storage area, car parking and balancing ponds. The porta cabin is a single story and of a typical design of this type of building. Key issues. The principle of development is inappropriate within the green belt as it does not comply with the exceptions within the NPPF. However, the agent has provided very special circumstances to clearly outweigh the harm to the green belt. The compound will help deliver a major infrastructure project. The compound is temporary and fully reversible. A condition will be included to ensure the land is reinstated to how it is now within a period of at least 5 years. Within 5 years. There's no realistic, practical or feasible alternative location. The compound does not cause any planning harm. The proposal is not far removed from some of the exceptions that are permissible within the green belt. In terms of the amenity of nearby neighbours, the application site is illustrated with a star. The nearest neighbours are the residential properties in the Binley estate, approximately 150 metres away. The Oak Farm Nursery, illustrated by the red circle, is approximately 200 metres away, and the Old Lodge Farm is 500 metres to the east, and the Broad Street Rugby Club to the south. In terms of the visible appearance of the compound, it must be viewed in context as a construction compound. Oh, sorry, bear with me one second there. As a construction compound, it will be located approximately 100 metres from the highway. Environmental Health have been consulted, and they have requested a construction management plan to control noise, dust emissions, and to reduce mud on the road. Ecology and Natural England have requested a construction environmental management plan to protect geo and biodiversity assets to include the triple SI. Warwickshire County Council Highways have raised no objection, subject to conditions. And in terms of flood risk management and the Environment Agency, they have raised no objection, subject to conditions. We had a condition request from archaeology late in the day. They have requested a condition for a written scheme of investigation for archaeological trial trench evaluation to be included with the decision if committee is minded to approve the scheme. In terms of the planning balance, the principle is acceptable. The scheme respects the scale and character of the surrounding area. There's been no adverse impacts on the amenities of neighbouring properties. It would not impact on highway safety, flooding or biodiversity and geodiversity assets, and therefore complies with the local plan and the NPPF. So the recommendation is therefore for approval subject to conditions and informatives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Paul. Can you just confirm that there actually is a condition requesting that the land is reinstated after everything has been removed, because it isn't on the report that I have in front of me?
That is correct. It's condition 3, right. and the compound will be turned back to the agricultural use within approximately 5 years after, or 5 years in duration, or when the if only the first junction is completed 3 months after that one.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, committee, do you have any queries for Paul on this application and his presentation? We have no hands in the air, so we move into debate. Who'd like to kick this one off? Councillor Gillius, then Councillor Cranham, then Councillor Picker.
Well, thanks, Chair. It's incredible, isn't it? This is only a temporary structure just to get things going with the road improvements. It's probably been a long delay getting to this point. Highways England have been in regular consultation with Binley Woods Parish Council, and I know that the scheme that's the whole scheme is within their approval, and I'd just like to move approval on this just to get the ball rolling.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cranham.
I shall second approval without more ado, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Picker.
I've been beaten to it. I think the only thing I'd want to add is that any of us who have used the junctions that are going to be upgraded by, or the upgrades are going to be facilitated by allowing this application, I think we'll all be in agreement that will be of great relief to all our residents. So we should approve this forthwith.
Thank you. Are there any other hands in the air to speak? In that case, it's been proposed by Councillor Gillius and seconded by Councillor Cranham. So all those in favour of approval, please raise your hand.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation. Nice and straightforward, and we all understood it. Lovely. Thank you. Right, we move on to the fourth application this evening, and Joe Orton is going to present, and this is R18/1247 land P19216 Brownsover Road. So, Paul, you need to remove your presentation so Joe can put hers up, please. We seem to have problems. Aha, right. Okay, evening, Joe. You had a long wait.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that you can see the presentation okay?
We can see the presentation, yeah. You're a little bit faint, but I can hear you.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, so we'll just hold on a bit, please. We are having problems tonight, aren't we?
I'll try and get the volume better so you can.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your patience, and I'll hand back to Jo to start her presentation again, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 16 new dwellings with the access to be taken from Brownsover Road. The proposed layout, which you can see in front of you, shows the access being taken from inside of the main turning going in towards the Premier Inn and Harvester. We've also got the location of the bin store, along with parking provision to be provided on the site. There is no garages within the dwellings. All parking is to be provided to the front. And now we have some images of what the proposed house types are going to look like. Okay, so moving on to photos of the area. We have a photo here which is looking up towards the Premier Inn from the site, with the Premier Inn that you can just see in the background. We have an image looking up towards the residential dwellings. Another image looking across the site towards the Volvo trucks premises, and also an image towards the car parking area, access road, sorry. Okay, so moving on to the key issues with the application. In terms of principle of development, the site is located within the Rugby Town as defined within policy GP2 of the local plan. Rugby Town provides the main focus of all development in the borough, and as such there is a principle in favour of sustainable development subject to all planning matters being appropriately addressed. Moving on to character and design, the layout has been designed so that the dwellings follow the contours of the canal, with the street scene providing both hard and soft landscaping. The dwellings use natural levels of the land, so the 3-storey dwellings have the appearance of 2-storey from the street scene. The ground floor will be below ground level with the use of a retaining wall, with computer-generated visuals showing that with an appropriate material, this will generate an attractive street scene. In terms of impact on residential amenity, the nearest residential dwellings and industrial units are separated from the application site by at least 21 and 63 metres, taking into account of on-site topography. As such, there are no materially adverse impacts on residential amenity within the surrounding area. In terms of highway safety, the existing access from Brownsover Road will be utilised with the creation of a new pedestrian crossing, which you can see located on the plan in this area. Warwickshire County Council Highways have confirmed that they have no objections to the proposal, subject to the inclusion of appropriate conditions. And the layout submitted with the application indicates that the proposal complies with the local authority's parking requirements, which can be seen in the table below. Moving on to affordable housing, the site, which as indicated in the report, the scheme does not offer any affordable housing. The site layout below shows the extent of the approved extant planning permission, which has already been commenced during building out, with the foundations of plots 10 and 11 shown here. The current proposal results in a significant gain in soft landscaping and reduction in hard landscaping, whilst maintaining amenity areas fronting the canal, with the proposal meeting biodiversity requirements subject to a financial contribution being made. The extant scheme below can be built out without this contribution, potentially harming biodiversity. Furthermore, the proposed scheme, as per condition 11, requires the submission of an air quality assessment and requires the proposal to be air quality neutral. This was not a requirement of the original planning permission, and in light of the climate change emergency, was considered to add significant weight to the existing proposal. Following numerous discussions with colleagues within the housing team, it was decided that due to the net gain in matters such as biodiversity, air quality, layout, and in light of the extant permission, which excludes affordable housing and can still be implemented, in this instance, affordable housing will not be required. The following aerial photographs show the evidence of the extant permission being implemented. In terms of the affordable housing, numerous discussions were also had with the developers and agents of the scheme in terms of viability. The scheme as it stands is currently on the brink of causing viability issues for the developers, and there was also several discussions as to whether or not a viability report should be submitted with the scheme as it stands. Due to those discussions and in the advice sought from colleagues in housing and also the weight given to the biodiversity contribution and also air quality neutral, it was considered that in this instance, as there is an intent to carry on with the build of the site, the improvements to the scheme through other measures outweighed the affordable housing in this instance. In terms of other matters, there are no materially adverse impacts for flood risk and drainage, ecology, landscaping and air quality. An additional condition would be included if members are minded to approve, and that would be for all finished floor levels of the buildings to be submitted and approved prior to any above ground works commencing on site. In terms of the planning balance, the proposal is located within the Rugby Town, the most sustainable location for development within the borough. There would be no adverse impacts on the character and appearance of the surrounding area or residential amenity. The scheme would bring a number of benefits, including additional dwelling to local stock and associated short-term economic benefits. The proposal would not have an adverse impact on highway safety, and the development complies with the local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. The recommendation, therefore, is to approve, subject to conditions, informatives and the completion of Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Joe. That was a very succinct presentation. I think you covered all the things that needed to be covered, including the fact that if this should not be approved, it reverts to the previous planning application, which obviously would then be built out. Does anybody have a question of clarification for Joe? No? In that case, we'll move on to debate. Councillor Cranham.
Thank you, Chair. Well, looking at the design of the houses, this is a significant improvement, in my opinion, on what was already been approved. It's a bit of scrubland. It provides a number of 3-bedroom houses, which for families, and I would move approval. I'm all for it. Nice looking houses.
Thank you very much. Yes, I tend to agree that canal side frontage, it does look a big improvement on the previous scheme. Councillor Gillies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, there's an interesting plot of ground. I had a look at this some weeks ago, and it tends to drop away from the road down to the stream, probably by 15 to 20 feet. So it's an interesting one. But I have noticed since the COVID that there has been some site clearance going on there, which is a contravention to condition 20. And obviously there's a lot of vegetation grown back again. But yes, I'm fully in support of doing something with this and make a good use of it.
Does that mean you're seconding?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Joe, for the report. My camera's gone out of line. I mean, I must confess I'm a little bit disappointed by this one, because if you asked me what are the 2 key things that we need to consider as a local planning authority at the moment, those are improving biodiversity and delivering affordable housing. And it seems that on this particular occasion, I do understand the extenuating circumstances regarding the extant planning permission. We have made a little bit of a trade-off here where we've gone, well, the biodiversity is a bit better, but so we're going to accept it doesn't deliver on affordable housing standards. I'm not going to vote against this. I'm not going to move refusal because it is obviously a vast improvement on the extant scheme. But this isn't the kind of trade-off that I want to see in future. It's not a case of either or. We can and we should deliver both.
Right, duly noted, and I'm sure our planning officers will take note of your comments because they are reflected of what committee have said in previous meetings. Councillor Mrs Brown. I can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Councillor. I won't vote against this. I agree with Councillor Picker. My concern really is that this is another example of piecemeal development, which kind of avoids the critical mass that prompts affordable housing. It's an observation really, rather than anything to debate, I think. But I'm disappointed too.
Thank you, Councillor Butlin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of in favour of this application. If we was kind of go by the standards of the reasoning behind that application last committee meeting, where they only got away with 5% on a kind of minimal slope, when you look at the slope on this kind of application, you'd have thought they were basically kind of asking for money to actually do it. So on those grounds alone, I think for them to kind of develop this site in this way with the biodiversity kind of bonuses, and not forgetting this is a small application. It's only 16 houses. Normally you would only have to kind of consider affordable housing above, I think it's 8 houses. I don't think this is much of a trade-off, and I don't think it's a significant loss to us in terms of affordable housing. So I'm quite happy with this application and will be approving it.
Thank you. Right, some of you have still got your hands up. I'm assuming that's because you've forgotten to take them down. Okay. Councillor Mrs Brown, do you wish to say something else? No, I've lost her. Right, in that case, it has been moved approval as per the report and conditions by Councillor Cranham, seconded by Councillor Gillius. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
That's 10-4, Chair.
Thank you. Take your hands down. And then those against. And any abstentions?
That's just one abstention, Chair.
So we've lost somebody along the way. Okay.
Yes, sorry, Councillor, I'm afraid it's me.
Is it you?
It's me again.
How would you like to vote, Councillor Mrs Brown?
I'll vote for it, please.
Thank you. So that's 11-4 and 1 against.
Thank you.
One abstention. Am I correct, Claire?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
In that case, that application is approved. Thank you very much, Joe. Okay, we can now move on to agenda item 5. And agenda item 5 is advance notice of site visits for planning applications. Do we have any?
No, we don't, Chair. I've not been notified of any new ones.
Okay, in that case, agenda item 6, which is delegated decisions.
Noted.
Okay, thank you.
Right, in that case, thank you very much, committee. I'm going to ask Stuart to stop streaming, and I'd like to thank the members of the public who've attended planning committee tonight. I hope you found it informative. So can I have confirmation that we've stopped streaming, please? And okay.